When I look back at my own journey, one of the biggest turning points was not a strategy, not a business deal, not even a skill. It was a mindset shift, specifically shifting from scarcity to abundance. And I want you to really think about this, because until you make this shift, no amount of tactics will ever get you to millions. You can have the right opportunities in front of you, and you'll still sabotage them if your mind is operating from scarcity. What does scarcity sound like? It says, there's not enough money out there. It says, if someone else succeeds, that means less for me. It whispers, I can't afford to take risks. I can't afford to invest. I can't afford to fail. Scarcity is a prison built out of fear, and it keeps you locked in a small life because it convinces you that everything is limited. Limited opportunity, limited capacity. But here's the truth. Wealth is not a pie with only a few slices. Wealth is a field, and the more you cultivate, the more it grows. Scarcity focuses on subtraction, what you might lose. Abundance focuses on multiplication, what you can create, and that shift alone changed everything for me. I used to look at other people's success with a tinge of envy, as if their win somehow reduced my chances. But abundance thinking taught me that every example of success was actually proof of possibility. If someone else could do it, that meant the door was open for me too. That's a mindset shift, from seeing success as competition to seeing it as confirmation. Scarcity also made me cautious, almost paralyzed when it came to money. I thought every dollar I spent was gone forever. I looked at money as something to hold tightly because I feared losing it. But abundance taught me that money is a seed. A seed only grows when it's planted. And when you plant it, whether into a business, into learning, into relationships, it multiplies. That's why wealthy people see money as a tool, not as a trophy. If you cling to money like it's your last, it will always be your last. But if you release it with wisdom, it comes back multiplied. And let me say this, scarcity doesn't just limit your wallet, it limits your imagination. Because when you think in scarcity, your questions are always small. How can I just get by? How can I cover my bills? How can I survive? But abundance asks bigger questions. How can I double my value this year? How can I create opportunities not just for myself, but for others? How can I build something that lasts for generations? The questions you ask are determined by the mindset you hold, and the answers you receive will never rise above the level of the questions you ask. Philosophically, abundance is rooted in the idea that the universe, God, life itself, whatever language you use, is expansive. Creation is abundant. Think about nature. A single tree doesn't produce one apple. It produces thousands over its lifetime, each apple containing seeds for more trees. That's the natural order of multiplication, not limitation. Scarcity thinking cuts you off from that natural rhythm. Abundance thinking aligns you with it. Now, psychologically, abundance doesn't mean recklessness. It doesn't mean spending without wisdom. It means operating from the belief that more can always be created. It's shifting your identity from a consumer to a creator. A consumer waits for opportunities to appear. A creator generates opportunities out of imagination, vision, and bold action. That's abundance. The reason so many people stay stuck in the middle class is because scarcity feels safe. It convinces you to protect what little you have instead of risking it to create more. But here's the paradox: safety and scarcity eventually becomes the most dangerous position of all, because inflation eats away at your savings, because opportunities pass you by while you hesitate, because the world keeps moving forward while you stay stuck in fear. Abundance, on the other hand, is not about reckless risk. It's about courageous creation. It's not about ignoring limitations. It's about seeing possibilities greater than those limitations. It's not about pretending everything is easy. It's about choosing to believe that everything can expand if you approach it with the right mindset. This is why the first millions I ever made weren't the result of doing something radically new. They were the result of thinking differently about what was already in front of me. Opportunities I once overlooked became obvious. Investments I once avoided became essential. Risks I once feared became doors to greater levels of wealth. The external world didn't change, my mindset did. And here's what I want you to take away. Wealth doesn't start in your bank account, it starts in your mind. Happiness doesn't start in your circumstances, it starts in your perspective. Scarcity will keep you small no matter how much money you make. Abundance will keep you expanding no matter how many obstacles you face. So let me close this thought with a challenge. The next time you catch yourself thinking in scarcity, when you say, I can't afford it, shift the question to how can I create it? When you feel threatened by someone else's success, shift to gratitude that you've just been shown what's possible. And when you feel the urge to cling tightly to money, remember money is a seed, and a seed only fulfills its purpose when it's planted. If you make that shift from scarcity to abundance, you'll discover something powerful. You were never waiting on money. Money was always waiting on you. One of the most costly mindsets I had to shed, and one of the most valuable I had to embrace, was the shift from an employee mentality to an ownership mentality. And this is one of the clearest dividing lines between those who stay stuck in the grind and those who create millions. Because an employee mindset is rooted in trading time for money, while an ownership mindset is rooted in creating and multiplying value. And until you make this shift, you will always find yourself working harder but never getting ahead. See, most people are conditioned from childhood to think like employees. We're taught to work hard, get good grades, find a stable job, and climb the ladder. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that path. It can produce stability. But stability is not the same as wealth, and stability is not the same as freedom. Stability might keep you safe, but it will also keep you small, because if you only trade time for money, you will always be capped. There are only so many hours in a day, only so much energy in your body. And if your income depends on your effort alone, you've already limited yourself before you even start. Now compare that to the ownership mentality. Owners don't think in terms of hours, they think in terms of assets. They ask, what can I create that continues producing long after I've stopped working on it? They understand leverage, the ability to multiply results without multiplying effort. This is why a business owner can make more in a week than an employee makes in a year. Not because they worked harder, but because they created something that works harder than they ever could. The employee mentality asks, how much will I get paid for this hour? The ownership mentality asks, how much value can I create and how can I own the rights to that value? That's why wealthy people focus on ownership of businesses, ownership of systems, ownership of intellectual property, ownership of investments, because ownership gives you leverage. Psychologically, the employee mentality keeps people in a position of dependence. You depend on a boss for your paycheck. You depend on the economy for your security. You depend on external circumstances to dictate your standard of living. That dependence creates fear, fear of losing the job, fear of rocking the boat, fear of taking risks. And fear is the greatest tax on wealth because it keeps you from moving boldly. But when you embrace ownership, you step into responsibility. You understand that your future is in your hands. You no longer wait for opportunities, you create them. You no longer depend on one source of income, you build multiple streams. You no longer let someone else decide your worth, you determine your own value in the marketplace. That shift is both liberating and sobering. Liberating because you realize you are not limited to a paycheck. Sobering because you realize no one else is coming to rescue you. It's all on you. And that's exactly where true power begins. Think about it like this. An employee exchanges their life energy for money 1 hour at a time. An owner invests their life energy into creating something that pays them back over and over again. One path gives you a paycheck. The other path gives you wealth. One path ends when you stop working. The other path continues even when you're sleeping. And here's the deeper philosophical truth. An employee mindset keeps you focused on consumption. You work so you can consume, but an ownership mindset keeps you focused on creation. You create so you can multiply, and creation, not consumption, is where lasting wealth is born. Now, don't misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with working a job as a stepping stone, but the danger is in staying there mentally forever. The danger is in thinking the goal is just to make more per hour instead of asking, how do I step out of the trap of hours altogether? Because until you step out of that trap, you will always be limited by time, and time is the one thing you can't multiply. When I finally understood this, I stopped asking, how can I earn more? And started asking, how can I own more? I looked at businesses differently. I looked at ideas differently. I even looked at relationships differently. Because every decision was no longer about surviving the month. It was about building assets that could create wealth for years. That shift transformed not just my bank account, but my identity. I stopped seeing myself as someone who worked for money and started seeing myself as someone who made money work for me. And once you experience that shift, you can't go back. You'll never again be satisfied with just clocking in and clocking out because you'll know there's a higher level of freedom available. Freedom that only comes when you think like an owner. So here's what I want you to take with you. The millions are not in your hours. They are in your ownership. The wealth you're casing is not hiding in overtime pay. It's hiding in the assets you haven't created yet, the value you haven't multiplied yet, the ownership you haven't claimed yet. And here's the closing thought. As long as you think like an employee, you will live at the mercy of someone else's vision. But the moment you start thinking like an owner, you step into your own vision. And that vision, combined with ownership, has the power to turn your effort into income, your income into wealth, and your wealth into freedom. Once you've shifted from scarcity to abundance and from employee thinking to ownership thinking, there's another mindset that has to change if you truly want to create millions, the shift from comfort to continuous growth. And let me tell you, this one is subtle because comfort masquerades as success. Comfort feels good. Comfort whispers, you've done enough. Take it easy. But the moment you buy into comfort as your destination, you've already begun your decline. Growth is the lifeblood of both wealth and happiness. Human beings are designed to expand, to stretch, to evolve. When you stop growing, you start shrinking, not just in your finances, but in your capacity and your influence, even in your joy. And yet most people are programmed to chase comfort as if that is the prize. They want the comfortable job, the comfortable house, the comfortable routine. They dream of one day being able to take it easy. But here's the paradox. The more you chase comfort, the less fulfilled you become. Because comfort without growth quickly turns into boredom. And boredom eventually turns into decline. Think about it this way. When you go to the gym, growth happens through resistance. The very thing that feels uncomfortable is what produces strength. If you stop lifting the weight because it's heavy, you never grow stronger. But if you lean into the discomfort, if you push through the resistance, your capacity increases. Wealth works the same way. If you avoid the challenges, if you retreat whenever the path feels uncomfortable, your financial capacity stays the same. But if you embrace the discomfort of learning new skills, taking calculated risks, and stretching yourself beyond the familiar, your wealth grows along with you. Now, this isn't just about money, it's about mindset. Comfort tells you to protect what you have. Growth tells you to pursue who you can become. Comfort clings to the familiar. Growth leans into the unknown. And that's why wealthy people think differently. They're not addicted to comfort, they're addicted to growth. They don't ask, how do I stay safe? They ask, how do I get stronger? How do I get better? How do I move to the next level? Philosophically, goes about aligning yourself with the truth that life itself is in motion. Nothing in nature stays the same. Trees grow or they die. Rivers flow or they dry up. The same is true of you. If you are not moving forward, you are drifting backward. Comfort convinces you that standing still is safe, but standing still in a moving world is the fastest way to fall behind. Psychologically, growth requires a tolerance for discomfort. Your brain is wired to protect you from pain, and it often interprets growth as pain. That's why so many people retreat the moment things get hard. They think discomfort is a signal to stop, when in reality, it's a signal that you're on the edge of expansion. The very discomfort you resist is the doorway to your next level of wealth and happiness. Here's the practical application. When you shift from comfort to growth, you start making different decisions. Instead of asking, what feels easiest right now? You start asking, what decision will expand me the most? You begin to measure opportunities not by how safe they are, but by how much they stretch you. And over time, those stretches compound. They build resilience, creativity, capacity, and ultimately wealth. One of the reasons the middle class often stays stuck is because their highest goal is comfort. They work for stability, not for growth. But stability is an illusion. Economies shift, jobs disappear, markets evolve. And when you've built your life around stability, you're the most vulnerable when change comes. The wealthy, on the other hand, build their lives around growth. And because they are constantly growing, they are ready for change. They don't fear disruption, they leverage it. They don't avoid challenges, they use them as fuel. That's the difference. Let me share this with you. The millions didn't come into my life because I found a magic formula. They came because I kept growing. When I hit one level of success, I didn't camp out there. I asked, what's next? Where can I stretch? What skill do I need to sharpen? What fear do I need to face? That relentless pursuit of growth is what kept me moving from one level to the next. And here's the beautiful part: when you commit to growth, you not only increase your wealth, you increase your happiness. Because happiness is deeply connected to progress. Nothing feels more alive than knowing you're becoming more than you were yesterday. That's why the richest people in the world often keep pushing even after they don't need more money. It's not about the money anymore. It's about the joy of growing, the joy of creating, the joy of becoming. So let me leave you with this: comfort is not the prize, growth is. Comfort will cost you your potential. Growth will unlock it. Comfort will make you feel safe for a moment, but growth will make you strong for a lifetime. And if you want to build millions, not just in your bank account, but in your joy, in your freedom, in your impact, you must fall in love with growth. Here's the closing thought: don't chase the easy path. Chase the path that expands you. Because when you choose growth over comfort, you won't just get richer. You'll become the kind of person for whom wealth and happiness are inevitable. If there's one mindset that completely redefines the way you build wealth, it's the shift from transactional thinking to transformational value. This is where the game changes, because up until now, you might be thinking in terms of hours, deals, or payments. That's transactional. And while you can make a living that way, you'll never make a fortune. Fortunes are built not on transactions, but on transformation. Let me explain. A transaction is simple. You give me this, I give you that. You pay me for an hour, I deliver the service. That's a trade. And trades have limits. There are only so many hours you can work, only so many deals you can make. Transactions are finite, but transformation is infinite. When you shift your focus from what do I get out of this to how do I create a change so significant it alters someone's future, that's when the money multiplies. See, people don't pay big money for small shifts. They pay big money for big results. Someone might pay you a little to cut their grass, but they'll pay you a lot to transform their business, their health, their relationships, their financial future. Transformation is what commands premium value. And the people who get rich, truly rich, are the ones who stop thinking about how to complete transactions and start thinking about how to create transformations. Philosophically, this is about moving from the mindset of survival to the mindset of significance. Survival asks, how do I get my needs met in this moment? Significance asks, how do I create value that lasts long after this moment? Transactional thinking is about what you earn today. Transformational thinking is about the impact you create that continues paying you tomorrow and the day after and for years to come. Psychologically, this requires breaking out of the habit of selling yourself short. So many people undervalue themselves because they're thinking in terms of tasks instead of transformations. They say, I charge this much per hour. But think about it, does a brain surgeon charge per hour? No, because the value isn't in the time, it's in the transformation. A brain surgeon doesn't get paid for how long the surgery takes. They get paid for saving a life, for altering a future. That's transformational value. When I finally understood this, it changed the way I positioned everything I did. I stopped asking, how much can I charge for this service? And started asking, what is the transformation this creates? And what is that worth to the person receiving it? That shift allowed me to increase my income exponentially, not because I worked harder, but because I stopped selling time and started delivering transformation. Here's the practical reality: the wealthiest people are masters of transformation. Entrepreneurs transform problems into solutions. Investors transform capital into growth. Coaches, consultants, and creators transform knowledge into breakthroughs. Every fortune has at its root a transformation. That's why transformational value scales while transactional value stalls. Think about companies like Apple. They don't just sell you a phone. That's a transaction. They transform how you communicate, how you work, how you connect with the world. That's why people pay a premium. Or consider personal development. You don't pay a mentor for the hours they spend with you. You pay them for the transformation in your thinking that could unlock millions in your lifetime. That's why value-based pricing far exceeds time-based pricing. Now, this isn't just about business strategy, it's about identity. Because to truly embrace transformational thinking, you have to see yourself not just as a worker, but as a creator of change. You have to believe that what you offer isn't just a service, it's a transformation. And when you hold that identity, people feel it, they sense it, and they're willing to invest in it. But here's the warning: If you stay stuck in transactional thinking, you'll always struggle to scale. You'll always hit a ceiling because transactions are limited. Transactions require your constant presence, but transformations create systems, products, services, and movements that go beyond you. And that's where wealth lives, in the ability to create something bigger than yourself, something that multiplies even when you're not in the room. The shift from transaction to transformation is also the shift from short-term to long-term wealth. Transactions might pay you today, but transformations build your reputation, your influence, and your brand. And those things will pay you for a lifetime. A single transformation can create ripple effects that generate wealth far beyond the initial exchange. That's why wealthy people focus on impact, not just income, because they know impact guarantees income. And let me say this, when you focus on transformation, you don't just get richer, you get more fulfilled, because money is a reward, but meaning is a motivator. When you know that what you do changes lives, you show up differently, you play bigger, you stop being afraid of charging more because you realize the transformation you create is priceless. That alignment of impact and income, that's where true wealth and happiness meet. So let me leave you with this closing thought. Transactions will feed you, but transformation will free you. If you want to make millions, stop counting hours and start creating impact. Stop asking, what can I earn today? And start asking, what future can I change forever? Because when you commit to transformational value, wealth doesn't just follow you, it chases you.